the observer effect suggests that our very act of observing something can influence its outcome.
Yeah.
It's as if our expectations, our very consciousness, can shape reality. And Spring uses this to highlight how our attempts to control things can sometimes create the very chaos that we're trying to avoid.
So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like if we're constantly fixated on what could go wrong, we might actually be making it more likely to happen.
That's a great way to put it. And it's a reminder that true power often lies in letting go.
Hello, Holistic Heroes. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to this week's episode of the Holistic Living for Body, Mind, and Spirit podcast, courtesy of Violet Spring.
Welcome to another deep dive with us. Today we're exploring the idea of surrender. And we're going to be looking at an article from Violet Spring, a holistic life coach. And her article really gets into how letting go can lead to inner peace. You know, it might seem a little counterintuitive at first.
Yeah, it is fascinating how Spring tackles this idea head on. She starts by acknowledging that wanting control is natural, especially with like how our modern world is. But then she introduces this idea of a control fallacy, the belief that we should have control over everything. And how this can actually block our happiness,
Yeah, it's like we're constantly chasing this impossible ideal of having everything perfectly figured out, and then when things inevitably go off script, we end up feeling stressed and anxious.
Exactly.
Like it's inevitable, right?
Yeah, and she has this powerful quote at the beginning of the article. The paradox of control lies in its inevitable dissolution. It is through embracing this truth that we find our greatest power. Really sets the stage for reframing how we think about surrender,
Yeah, it challenges us to think about, well, what happens when we embrace the reality that we can't control everything?
Yeah. Right.
What if letting go actually opens us up to a different kind of power? One that doesn't come from force or manipulation, but from a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us?
Yeah, that's the heart of it, isn't it? Spring's definition of surrender emphasizes that it's not about, giving up or becoming passive. It's a conscious choice, a deliberate act of aligning with the natural flow of life. Think of it like a sailboat adjusting its sails to the wind. You're not fighting the wind, you're working with it to reach your destination.
I love that analogy. It makes me think about those times when I've clung to a specific outcome, only to find that letting go actually led to something even better, something I couldn't have planned or predicted.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Spring even points to scientific research showing that people who practice surrender often experience less stress and anxiety and have a higher overall sense of well-being.
Okay.
When we're constantly trying to control everything, we put immense pressure on ourselves,
Right.
It's like carrying a heavy weight around all the time.
Right. And surrender is essentially putting down that weight.
Exactly.
Okay. So Spring talks about these benefits, but are there any real world examples of this playing out? What does surrendering actually look like in someone's life?
Well, imagine someone who's a perfectionist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Constantly striving for flawless results. Surrendering might look like them embracing imperfections, allowing themselves to make mistakes, and focusing on the process rather than just the outcome. Or consider someone who's terrified of public speaking. For them, surrender might involve accepting their nervousness, focusing on connecting with the audience, and trusting that they'll be able to get their message across.
So it's not about erasing those feelings or pretending they don't exist.
No.
It's about acknowledging them and choosing to move forward anyway.
Exactly, with a sense of acceptance and self-compassion.
Got it. And Spring also draws a fascinating connection between Eastern philosophy and modern physics, particularly the concept of the observer effect.
Yeah.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. I know a little bit about the observer effect from quantum physics, but I'm curious to hear how Spring ties it into surrender.
Well, the observer effect suggests that our very act of observing something can influence its outcome.
Yeah.
It's as if our expectations, our very consciousness, can shape reality. And Spring uses this to highlight how our attempts to control things can sometimes create the very chaos that we're trying to avoid.
So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like if we're constantly fixated on what could go wrong, we might actually be making it more likely to happen.
That's a great way to put it. And it's a reminder that true power often lies in letting go and allowing things to unfold naturally. Think about it. Have you ever noticed that when you obsess over something, it seems to just get more complicated? It's almost as if the universe is saying, let go, trust the process and see what happens.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I'm realizing like a lot of my stress comes from trying to like micromanage every aspect of my life.
Right.
It's exhausting. So I'm curious to hear more about like the practical side of surrender. If letting go is so beneficial, how do we actually start doing it?
Well, Spring suggests several practices, including mindfulness meditation, journaling, and affirmations. Each of these can be tailored to help cultivate a surrendering mindset.
Okay, those are all like practices I've heard of, but I'm not sure how they connect to surrender specifically. Will you elaborate on that?
Yeah, mindfulness meditation, for example, can help us become aware of where we're holding tension in our bodies.
Right.
Often that tension is a sign that we're resisting letting go.
Okay.
By bringing awareness to those sensations, we can start to gently release our grip, both physically and mentally.
So it's like noticing when we're clenching our fists or tightening our jaw and then consciously choosing to soften and relax.
Exactly.
Okay, but how does journaling play into this?
Well, journaling can be a powerful tool for processing our emotions and letting go of thoughts and experiences that are weighing us down. Spring suggests gratitude journaling, which can help shift our perspective away from what we lack or what we can't control and towards appreciating what we already have.
Okay.
And this helps us foster a sense of contentment and acceptance, which are key elements of surrender.
That makes sense. And how about affirmations? How can those support a surrendering mindset?
Well, affirmations are positive statements that we can repeat to ourselves to reprogram our subconscious beliefs.
Well,
Spring recommends using affirmations that reinforce a surrendering mindset, such as, I trust in the flow of life, or I release my need for control. By consciously choosing to focus on these empowering statements, we can start to shift our internal dialogue from fear and resistance to trust and acceptance.
so it's about actively replacing those negative thought patterns with more positive and supportive ones.
Exactly.
Yeah. It seems like all these practices are about creating small, intentional shifts in our thoughts and behaviors.
Yeah,
But does Spring suggest that even small steps can make a difference?
absolutely. She emphasizes that even small acts of surrender can have a ripple effect throughout our lives.
Okay.
It's not about achieving some perfect state of surrender overnight, but rather about gradually cultivating a new way of being. The more we practice letting go, the more we create space for peace, joy, and even unexpected opportunities to flow into our experience.
It's like we're training our minds and bodies to be more receptive to the natural flow of life,
Yeah.
rather than constantly trying to like swim upstream against the current. So it sounds like surrender is more than just like stress reduction.
Yeah.
It's about opening ourselves up to a whole new way of experiencing life. But I imagine there are also signs that we might be holding on to control too tightly, right?
Yes, and Spring addresses that in her article. She talks about excessive worry, perfectionism, and needing external validation as signs that we might be clinging to control in unhealthy ways.
Okay, those are all things I think many of us struggle with, especially in today's world.
Right.
What happens when we hold on to this need for control so tightly?
Well, as Spring points out, it can damage our relationships, block our creativity, and even lead to missed opportunities.
Wow.
When we're fixated on controlling every detail, we become rigid and inflexible, which prevents us from going with the flow and embracing new possibilities.
Okay.
It's like building walls around ourselves instead of allowing ourselves to truly connect with others and with life itself.
That's a powerful image. It makes me think about those times when I've been so focused on a particular outcome that I've missed out on other opportunities or experiences that were right in front of me.
It happens to all of us.
Yeah.
And Spring highlights specific examples like decision paralysis and workaholic tendencies, you
Right.
know? They might seem like different issues, but they can both stem from a fear of letting go.
It's fascinating how she connects those seemingly unrelated behaviors back to that core issue of control.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if there are other, like, seemingly positive traits that might actually be masking a deeper fear of surrender.
That's a really insightful observation.
Yeah.
And it's something to keep in mind as we continue exploring this concept.
Yeah.
Spring suggests that surrendering, even in those areas where we feel most resistant, can actually lead to greater fulfillment and clarity.
Okay, but how is that even possible? It seems counterintuitive.
It does, doesn't it? It's like one of those great paradoxes of life.
Yeah.
How can letting go actually lead to having more? Well, neuroscience has shown that when we surrender, we activate the parts of our brains associated with creativity and intuition. It's as if we're tapping into a deeper level of wisdom that's not accessible when we're stuck in that hyper-focused, controlling state of mind.
So it's not just a nice sounding philosophy.
No.
There's actually a neurological basis for the transformative power of surrender.
Yeah.
It's exciting to think about the possibilities that open up when we let go of that need to control everything.
It is exciting.
Yeah.
And spring makes it clear that letting go doesn't mean we become passive or lose our motivation.
Okay.
It's about shifting our focus from forcing outcomes to aligning ourselves with a greater flow and trusting that things will unfold as they should.
Okay, that makes sense. But I'm sure many people are still hesitant to embrace surrender.
Right.
Even if they understand the benefits. What advice does spring offer for overcoming that resistance? It can be so challenging to let go of those ingrained patterns of control.
You're absolutely right. Spring acknowledges that it's a common challenge, and she offers some really practical advice. She starts by highlighting that many of us have, deep-seated fears of the unknown, attachments to specific outcomes, and ingrained patterns of control that we've developed over a lifetime. These patterns might have served us in the past, but they can become limiting if we hold on to them too tightly.
So how do we start to unravel those patterns and move towards a more surrendering mindset? It feels like a big undertaking.
It can feel that way, but spring emphasizes the importance of starting with self-compassion. We need to be kind and patient with ourselves as we navigate this process. She also suggests working with our inner critic, that voice that tells us we're not good enough or that we need to be in control of everything.
Yeah.
It's about learning to recognize those negative thoughts and consciously choosing to respond to them with kindness and understanding rather than judgment.
It's about becoming aware of those limiting beliefs and then consciously choosing to shift our perspective.
Yeah.
But sometimes that inner critic can be so loud.
Yes.
How do we quiet it down and make space for that self-compassion?
Well, spring suggests several helpful techniques. One is to simply acknowledge the presence of the inner critic without judgment. Notice the thoughts and feelings that arise and then gently challenge them. Ask yourself if those thoughts are truly helpful or if they're just keeping you stuck in old patterns.
Right.
Another technique is to reframe those negative thoughts into more positive and empowering ones. For example, if your inner critic is telling you that you're not good enough, you can counter that thought with an affirmation like, I am capable and worthy.
It's about learning to talk to ourselves with kindness and understanding, the same way we would talk to a dear friend.
Exactly.
But spring also reminds us that this is a journey, not a quick fix, right?
Exactly. There will be times when we fall back into old patterns of control.
Of course.
And that's perfectly okay.
Yeah.
The key is to keep practicing, keep learning, and keep moving forward.
It's a process of unlearning and relearning.
Yeah.
Of gradually shifting our mindset and behaviors towards a more surrendering way of being. But spring also emphasizes that we don't have to go through this alone, right? She encourages seeking support from therapists or communities if we're struggling.
She reminds us that there are many resources available to help us on this path, and it's important to reach out for guidance when we need it.
Yeah.
Sometimes having a compassionate and experienced guide can make a world of difference.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we're not alone in this journey.
It's so inspiring to hear how spring paints a picture of the transformative potential of surrender.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to hear your perspective as well.
Sure.
What are some of the most profound changes you've seen in people who have embraced this practice?
Oh.
Have you witnessed real transformations in their lives?
I have. I've seen incredible shifts in people who have committed to the path of surrender. Mm-hmm. They often experience increased trust in themselves and the universe, greater resilience in the face of challenges, and a deeper sense of authenticity in their relationships and work.
That's beautiful. It sounds like surrender can truly open us up to a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
It does.
It's not just about reducing stress. It's about tapping into a deeper well of inner strength and wisdom.
Exactly. And spring beautifully summarizes this by saying, embrace the journey even when it's messy and see what unfolds. It's a reminder that surrender is not about perfection.
Right.
It's about embracing the unknown and trusting that we'll be guided along the way.
I love that. It's about letting go of the need to control every detail.
Right.
And allowing ourselves to be surprised by the beauty and wonder that unfold when we surrender to the flow of life.
Yes.
It's about trusting that even when things feel uncertain, we're supported and guided by a wisdom that's far greater than our own limited understanding.
Beautifully said. And Spring's article goes even deeper, exploring spiritual perspectives and practices for integrating surrender into our daily lives. She also delves into the profound impact surrender can have on our lives, touching on everything from our relationships to our creativity. But before we dive into those insights, let's shift gears a bit and explore what Spring has to say about the spiritual dimensions of surrender.
I'm eager to hear more about that. It seems like there's a whole other layer to this concept that we haven't even touched upon yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Spring's exploration of the spiritual side of surrender is truly insightful. She delves into how different spiritual traditions view surrender as a path to enlightenment and inner peace, which I think can be a powerful shift in perspective for a lot of people.
You're right. It's fascinating to see how like different cultures and belief systems have approached this concept for centuries.
Yeah.
In our modern Western culture, surrender often has a negative connotation.
Right.
It can be seen as giving up or admitting defeat, but Spring reframes it as a way of connecting with something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
Something beyond our limited ego and individual will.
Precisely. And she even includes the quote, let go and let God. It's interesting how this simple phrase can be interpreted in both a traditional or religious sense and a broader spiritual context.
Right.
The core idea is that trusting a force beyond our individual ego, whether that's a higher power, the universe, or even just the natural flow of life, can lead to a path of less resistance and ultimately more peace.
It's about relinquishing that need to control every tiny detail.
Yeah.
And instead cultivating a sense of trust and faith in something larger than ourselves.
Yes. Yeah.
It's about recognizing that we're not alone in this journey.
Right.
And that there's a wisdom at play that we can tap into when we let go of our need to be in control.
Beautifully put. Spring also highlights how ancient spiritual practices often viewed surrender as a sacred way to align with divine wisdom or universal consciousness.
Okay.
This concept of letting go of personal desires to tap into a greater wisdom.
Right.
Seems to resonate across diverse spiritual and philosophical systems.
So it's not just about surrendering to a specific deity.
Right.
But also about aligning with a larger flow.
Yes.
A sense of interconnectedness that transcends our individual ego.
Exactly.
It's about recognizing that we're part of something much bigger than ourselves.
Yes, and in contemporary spiritual teachers often emphasize this aspect of surrender, the shift from an ego-based consciousness to a more expansive state of awareness.
Right.
It's about tapping into intuition and inner guidance, that quiet voice within that often gets drowned out by our constant need to control and analyze everything.
Yeah, that resonates with me. I've definitely had those moments where I've felt a sense of knowing or intuition.
No. Right.
But then my mind kicks in and tries to overanalyze everything.
Yeah.
And that inner wisdom gets lost in the noise.
It's so common. Our minds are powerful tools, but they can also get in the way of experiencing that deeper level of wisdom and guidance. Spring's insights on the spiritual dimension of surrender offer a powerful reminder that there's more to life than what we can see and control with our rational minds.
It's about opening ourselves up to a different way of knowing, a way of being that's more aligned with the natural flow of life, even when that flow feels unpredictable or uncertain.
Mm-hmm.
But Spring doesn't just talk about the spiritual side of surrender. She also offers practical advice for incorporating surrender into our everyday lives.
Right.
And I think this is where it can get really tangible for people who are new to this concept.
Absolutely. She suggests simple practices like taking deep breaths during stressful moments or setting intentions for openness at the beginning of each day. These might seem like small things, but they can be incredibly powerful in shifting our mindset and creating space for surrender to emerge.
Yeah, I love the idea of setting an intention for openness.
Yeah.
It's like inviting the universe to surprise us with possibilities we might not have even considered.
Exactly.
It's a subtle shift in perspective,
Yes.
but it can make a big difference in how we approach our day.
It really can. And Spring emphasizes that integrating surrender into our lives is about recognizing opportunities to let go in everyday situations, whether we're dealing with a traffic jam, a sudden change of plans, or a challenging interaction with someone. It's about transforming those moments that might normally trigger frustration or anxiety into opportunities to practice acceptance and flexibility.
So it's about finding those moments of surrender in the midst of the mundane.
Right.
In the everyday challenges that we all face.
Yes.
It's about recognizing that surrender is not just a concept we think about. It's a way of being that we can cultivate moment by moment.
Exactly. And she encourages us to regularly reflect on how we respond to daily challenges.
Okay.
This helps us identify those areas where we tend to cling to control.
Right.
And where we could be more receptive to letting go.
Okay, so creating small rituals or anchors throughout the day can also serve as reminders to pause and release our grip on control.
Right.
It could be as simple as taking a few deep breaths before responding to a stressful email.
Yeah.
Or pausing to appreciate the beauty of nature during our lunch break.
Exactly.
It's about weaving those moments of surrender into the fabric of our lives.
Yeah.
So it becomes less of a conscious effort and more of a natural way of being. It's about creating space for pause, reflection, and acceptance in the midst of our busy lives. But as we've been talking about, this process doesn't always come easily, right? Mm-hmm. Spring also acknowledges the resistance that many people face when it comes to letting go.
Absolutely. She addresses those common challenges head on: fear of the unknown, attachment to specific outcomes, and those deeply ingrained patterns of control that we've relied on for so long can be powerful forces to contend with.
It's understandable why we'd be hesitant to let go of those patterns, especially if they've served us well in the past.
Yeah.
Sometimes those patterns were even necessary for our survival, especially if you've experienced like trauma or difficult life circumstances.
Yeah.
It makes sense that we'd be reluctant to relinquish that sense of control, even if it's no longer serving us.
That's such an important point. Spring emphasizes the importance of being honest with ourselves, of exploring those uncomfortable emotions that can arise when we consider truly letting go. It's not about suppressing those feelings, but about acknowledging them with compassion and understanding. It's about creating a safe space within ourselves to explore those fears and resistances without judgment.
It's about being curious about our own resistance,
Yeah.
rather than trying to push it away or pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And Spring also talks about the role of our inner critic in this process. That voice that can be so quick to judge and criticize can make it even harder to surrender. It can whisper doubts and fears in our ears, making us question our ability to let go and trust the process.
Yeah, some inner critic can be a powerful force.
Yeah.
But Spring offers some great advice on how to work with it. She suggests techniques like somatic experiencing, which involves paying attention to the physical sensations in our bodies,
Right.
as well as cognitive reframing, which involves consciously challenging and reframing those negative thoughts.
Right. And as we talked about earlier, cultivating self-compassion is essential in this process.
Yes.
It's about learning to recognize those negative thought patterns and then consciously choosing to respond to them with kindness and understanding rather than harsh self-criticism. It's about remembering that we're all works in progress.
Yeah.
And that we're all doing the best we can with the resources we have at any given moment.
Beautifully said. And Spring reminds us that it's okay to seek support from therapists or mentors who can provide guidance and a safe space to explore those deeper layers of resistance.
Yeah.
Sometimes having an outside perspective can be incredibly helpful in navigating those challenging emotions and thought patterns.
It's a powerful reminder that we don't have to navigate this journey alone.
Right.
We can reach out for help and connect with others who are also on this path of learning to surrender.
Exactly. And while Spring acknowledges the challenges of surrendering, she also paints a beautiful picture of its transformative potential. She describes the profound shifts that can occur when we embrace surrender,
Right.
leading to greater trust, resilience, and authenticity in our lives. She reminds us that surrender is not a sign of weakness, but a profound act of courage and strength.
I like that.
It takes courage to let go of our perceived control and embrace the unknown.
All right.
And as she so eloquently puts it, each step toward a surrender brings us into deeper alignment with our true nature and the natural flow of life, even when the path seems unclear or challenging.
It's about trusting that even when things feel uncertain or messy, there's a deeper wisdom at play guiding us towards our highest good.
Beautifully said.
It's about recognizing that we're not in control of everything, but we can choose to trust the process and allow life to unfold in its own time and in its own way.
Beautifully said. And spring encourages us to celebrate those small victories along the way, to acknowledge the progress we're making, even when it feels like we're, taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that transformation is a process, not an overnight event.
Yeah.
It's a journey of unfolding, of becoming more aligned with who we truly are and what we're meant to be doing in this world.
And she emphasizes the importance of maintaining curiosity throughout this journey.
Yeah.
It's not about achieving some perfect state of surrender, but about approaching the process with an open mind and a willingness to learn and grow.
Right.
It's about embracing the unknown with a sense of wonder and excitement, knowing that there's always more to discover about ourselves and the world around us.
Exactly. And as spring concludes, the transformative power of surrender becomes most evident when we look back and recognize how our relationship with life has fundamentally shifted from resistance to acceptance.
Yeah.
It's about that gradual shift in perspective, from feeling like we have to control everything to trusting that we're supported and guided even when we let go.
It's a beautiful reminder that surrender it's not about giving up, but about opening ourselves up to a richer, more fulfilling experience of life. It's about trusting that even when we can't see the path ahead, there's a wisdom guiding us, a force that's far greater than our limited human understanding.
Spring's article offers so much wisdom and practical guidance on this journey of surrender. It's inspiring to see how she weaves together ancient wisdom with modern science and psychology, creating a holistic approach to understanding and practicing surrender in our lives.
I agree. Her insights have definitely resonated with me, and I'm already starting to think about how I can incorporate some of these practices into my own life. I'm particularly drawn to the idea of setting an intention for openness each day. It seems like a simple yet powerful way to create space for surrender and allow myself to be surprised by the unexpected gifts that life has to offer.
That's a wonderful intention to set. And remember, even small acts of surrender can make a big difference.
Right. It's not about achieving perfection, but about taking small steps each day to cultivate a more surrendering way of being.
Spring's article has been such a rich exploration of surrender, offering both profound insights and practical guidance for integrating this transformative practice into our lives. But she doesn't stop there.
Right.
In the final part of her article, Spring dives even deeper into the transformative power of surrender, exploring its impact on our relationships, our creativity, and our overall sense of purpose and meaning.
I'm excited to continue this conversation and explore those final insights with you.
It's amazing how surrendering can impact so many areas of our lives. I'm particularly curious about how it shows up in our relationships. It seems like letting go of control in that area could be both challenging and incredibly rewarding. Yeah, Spring delves into that beautifully in this last part of her article. She suggests that surrendering in relationships doesn't mean becoming a doormat or abandoning our own needs. It's about shifting from a place of trying to force or manipulate the other person to meet our expectations to a place of acceptance, compassion, and open communication.
Okay, so that makes sense. It's about releasing the need to control the other person,
yeah,
and instead focusing on building trust, understanding, and genuine connection. But how does surrender actually play out in those difficult situations, like when there's conflict or disagreement?
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to talk about surrender in theory, but it can feel so much harder to put it into practice when we're in the midst of a heated argument or feeling hurt and misunderstood.
It's true. Those are the moments when surrender is most challenging, but also potentially most transformative. Spring encourages us to approach those difficult conversations with a willingness to listen deeply, to understand the other person's perspective, and to express our own needs and feelings with vulnerability and honesty. It's about moving away from that blame shame cycle and instead creating a space for empathy and understanding to emerge.
It's about recognizing that we don't always have to be right or win the argument. Sometimes the most powerful act of surrender is simply choosing to let go of our need to control the outcome,
yeah,
and instead focusing on building a stronger connection with the other person. But Spring doesn't just talk about relationships. She also explores how surrender can can unlock our creative potential.
Yeah.
And that's something I've always struggled with, feeling, blocked or stuck in my creative endeavors. I'm curious to hear what Spring has to say about that.
Yeah, she makes a fascinating point about how our need for control can actually stifle our creativity. When we're fixated on a specific outcome or a perfect result, we close ourselves off to the flow of inspiration and intuition.
Right.
Surrender, on the other hand, allows us to tap into that creative energy that's always, flowing within us.
It's like we're opening ourselves up to the unknown, allowing the muse to guide us rather than trying to force or control the creative process.
Exactly.
That makes me think of those times when I've felt most creatively inspired.
Yeah.
And it's often when I've let go of my expectations and just allowed myself to play and experiment without judgment.
Exactly. Spring suggests that practices like free writing, intuitive painting, or improvisational music can help us cultivate that sense of surrender in our creative process.
Yeah.
It's about allowing the creative energy to flow through us without censorship or judgment.
It's about trusting the process and allowing ourselves to be surprised by what emerges. But it's not just about relationships and creativity. Spring also touches upon how surrender can help us connect with our purpose and meaning in life.
Yeah.
It seems like a pretty big leap to go from letting go of small things to finding our life's purpose.
It might seem that way, but Spring suggests that surrendering to the flow of life can actually help us clarify our values, our passions, and our unique gifts. When we let go of the need to control everything, we open ourselves up to new possibilities and opportunities that might have been hidden from our view when we were fixated on a particular path or outcome.
It's like we're saying yes to the universe,
Yeah.
trusting that we're being guided towards something meaningful and fulfilling,
Exactly.
even if we don't know exactly what that looks like yet. It's a reminder that sometimes the path unfolds as we walk it, and that the most fulfilling journey often involves unexpected twists and turns.
That's such a beautiful way to put it. And Spring reminds us that surrender is not a one-time event,
Right.
but a continuous process of learning, evolving, and deepening our trust in ourselves and the universe.
Okay.
It's a journey of letting go of what no longer serves us, embracing the unknown, and allowing ourselves to be guided by something larger than our limited human understanding.
Spring's article has been such an insightful exploration of surrender, offering a profound perspective on how letting go can actually lead to a more fulfilling, meaningful, and joyful life. It's a reminder that true power doesn't come from forcing or controlling,
Right.
but from aligning ourselves with a natural flow of life and trusting that we're being guided towards our highest good, even when the path ahead feels uncertain.
It's been a pleasure diving into these concepts with you. I hope Spring's insights have inspired you to explore the transformative power of surrender in your own life.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We encourage you to continue exploring these ideas and to see what unfolds in your own life as you begin to practice the art of letting go.
Be sure to check the description below for all the goods on this week's topic. And remember, being your own holistic hero is easy. Just like and subscribe to join the journey. Thanks for watching.